You might know the great story of Paul's conversion moment. Most of us in the church know all about the Damascus Road moment when Paul was on the Damascus Road on his way to try to shut down the message of Christianity, but then God and him collide, and the next thing you know, his entire life is turned upside down. After that moment, Paul becomes literally the most quoted man ever in history for the glory of God. He spends the rest of his life not as an enemy of the gospel, but as a child of the gospel. He becomes probably the greatest preacher who ever lived. I want us to, though, go back to a moment that many people miss in the Bible. In the story of Paul's conversion, something happens immediately after that conversion moment. We know all about the conversion moment, but look at what happens immediately after it. In Acts 9:20, it says that at once Paul began to preach in the synagogue that Jesus is the Son of God. The at once part is really about the reality that as soon as Paul became a Christian, he didn't have to go through a seminary. He didn't have to go through a whole lot of EE training. He didn't have to go through years and years of someone teaching him how to declare God's goodness. No, as soon as he came to Christ, he began preaching the good news of Jesus. Once he was converted, he began to be used by God to convert others. Maybe you're thinking to yourself, I'm not a professional Christian. I mean, I'm not a pastor. I don't have a TV show. I'm not an author. I wouldn't even know where to begin. But the truth is that God is more concerned about you being available. And God would much rather use you to flow through His power than you being concerned about polish. A few years ago, I was at a youth camp, and I saw a student come to Christ. Now, this student was an enemy of the gospel all week long at camp. But then, on the last day, on his way home, this teenager who wanted to have nothing to do with God, on the bus drive back to his church, ends up giving his life to Christ. Now, this guy wanted to have nothing to do with Jesus, but as soon as he converted, 24 hours later, was in a movie theater with the guy that led him to the Lord in the bus. Now, this guy's a brand new Christian. Remember that. Don't forget that. And he's sitting in this movie theater. And the story that I heard went like this, that while he was in the movie theater, during the previews, the film projector broke down. And as soon as it broke down, this guy that's been a Christian for one day, that used to be an enemy of the gospel, stands up and goes and stands in front of the entire movie theater. And he looks at the entire movie theater and says, hey, everybody, while they're fixing the projector back there, I want to take a moment to say that yesterday I became a Christian. 2 days ago, I would have been the last person to be talking about Jesus, but right now I wanted to take this minute while they're fixing the projector to say that I became a Christian yesterday, and if you want to know how you can come to Christ, you can meet me out back after the movie's over by the popcorn machine. Now here's a guy that 2 days before was an enemy of the gospel, and 2 days later is standing in front of an entire movie theater talking about Jesus. Now here's a guy who didn't have a whole lot of content probably, didn't have a Bible degree, didn't go to Bible college, but at the same time, the truth is I know a lot of people with great theology that never share the gospel with anybody. See, Paul becomes a Christian and immediately begins to preach. And if you and I are believers, God is calling us to be about the Great Commission. Today, find someone in your neighborhood. Find someone you do life with, someone that you go to school with. Find someone that you, with urgency, with a sense of immediacy, can reach out to and share the good news of Jesus with.